Hey, what's going on? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone. We are talking about the difference between a stacked humbucker and a regular single coil. Now, why did I say stacked humbucker and not stacked single coil? Because, and I hate to break it to you, there is no such thing as a noiseless single coil. Why is that? Well, it's a thing called physics. So let's talk about what causes a humbucker to work and what single coil noise comes from. Popular belief says that hum comes through the ground and through wires and through all that kind of stuff. We have a whole nother video about what actually causes hum and how you can fix that, and what ground loops actually are, and how you cannot have a ground loop in a passive guitar. So get that out of your head right now. So all of those things are kind of outside of the realm of this video, but we do have videos on them, so you can definitely check them out. The bottom line is electromagnetic interference, which is the hum that you hear in a single coil, comes over the air. It actually is a radiation, more or less, from anything like with a transformer in it. So like a ballast of a fluorescent light, ballast of neon lights are popular ones, especially in playing venues. Your television, that sort of thing. So all those kind of things emit electromagnetic interference. Anytime you have a coil wound up like this, it becomes an antenna. Do you remember those old school AM antennas that were basically like a plastic hoop with just a wire wrapped around it? All it was a predetermined length of coil wire that allowed you to pick up AM radio stations. This does exactly the same thing. And so basically you pick up that electromagnetic interference over the air. And it is at a frequency. In the United States, it's 60 hertz most of the time, depending on the type of noise. And overseas in other areas of the world, it might be 50 hertz. But either way, it is a frequency that is picked up by the coil. How do we fix that? Basically, we introduce another coil that is wound the other direction, and it picks it up, but it picks it up out of phase. So now you have that coil, one's wound one way and one's wound the other way. So one's counterclockwise and one's clockwise. In reality, we'll get to how they do that in a minute, but basically it's electrically out of phase with each other. And so when you have the 60 hertz coming in, or 50 hertz or whatever it is, coming in through one coil, or being picked up by one coil, and then you have it being picked up by the other coil, it's out of phase, and they cancel each other out, and it cancels that noise out. But then you say, but if I have signal coming in one coil and coming in the other coil, isn't that going to cancel out the signal of my guitar? Yes. However, because this noise has nothing to do with the magnetism, we can flip the polarity of the magnets to more or less change the polarity of the audio signal and not the noise. Now, it's a little more technical than that. People are going to jump into the comments and say I'm explaining this incorrectly. But for the simplicity of this video, what we're doing is we're changing the electrical polarity of the pickup. So the coil direction to be out of phase. One coil is out of phase with the other, electrically how it's hooked up. And then we're changing it back more or less with a magnet direction to get our audio signal in phase. So now it sounds like a regular pickup without the noise. How do we do that with a single coil? Because with a humbucker, we have two coils side by side, and there's a magnet in the middle, and one side is north and one side is south. And believe it or not, people don't realize this, but when you make a humbucker, both coils are wound in the same direction. But what they do is they hook up, they hook the finishes of those wires together. And so what you have is the signal coming in one coil one direction, and then it goes out one coil, and then it goes in the out of the other coil, so that it's electrically going backwards the other way. The coils are physically wound the same direction, but you're basically just hooking one of them up backwards, if this makes sense. So that's the same thing we do here. We have two coils, one's on top of the other instead of next to each other, and so you have them both wound the same direction. and then you take the ends of them and you connect the ends together. So it goes in one coil, out that coil, and then it goes in the out of the other coil, backwards the other way, and then out. So now you have a stacked humbucker. This is not a stacked single coil. The only reason they call it a stacked single coil is because it fits in the same hole as a regular single coil, but it is not a single coil. But then you're like, wait a minute. But the magnetic polarity has to be the same, and they're on the same magnet. Yes, they are. However, this might be the north side of the coil, and this might be the south side of the coil, and just by nature of how a magnet works, you've got the north polarity up here and the south polarity down here, or vice versa, depending on how they do it. But now you have two different magnetic polarities, two coils wound backwards from each other. Boom, you have a humbucker in a single coil hole. Is it going to sound like a single coil? No, it will not. It will sound sort of like a single coil, but it will not totally sound like a single coil. Here's why. This cannot be done perfectly. We do not play on a perfect sine wave. So when people show pictures of this on the internet, a lot of time they show this. They show this like perfect sine wave, and here's our audio signal, and then here's our little noise down here from our 60 hertz, and then when we cancel out our 60 hertz, then you don't hear that, and then you hear the noise, the signal perfectly, and you don't hear any 60 hertz or 50 hertz. But that is not real life. Because your guitar signal looks more like this, where it's bouncing around, it's moving all over the place, it's moving in and out of they're overlapping each other sometimes, because the signal is like when you in between notes, the signal is collapsing and then growing again, collapsing and then growing again, and the frequency is moving out and in depending on where you are on the neck. It's bouncing all over the place. That 60 hertz hum is more or less riding on that, or is within that, and so it's not going to be perfectly canceled ever. So you're always going to have a little bit of noise because of that 60 hertz hum riding inside there. It's never going to be perfect. The reason it's never going to sound like a single coil is because when you filter out 60 hertz, remember that part of what's getting filtered out is part of also automatically, because of all of this overlapping and bouncing around, part of your audio signal. So you're going to lose brightness, you're going to lose the clarity, you're going to lose a lot of the dynamics, like that, just that from very, very quiet to very harsh, just the ability for the pickup to respond to touch, all those sorts of things you're going to lose. It's just not going to be there. It's never going to be there. And I don't care what anybody says. And you're going to get in the comments and you're going to say, yeah, but I played so-and-so pickup by some brand, whatever it is, and they do it different and it sounds good. It may sound good. You're right. But it ain't going to sound like a regular single coil. The physics do not allow it. That's why I don't make them, because I don't believe in compromises. I don't believe in making a pickup that kind of sounds good, that is pretty good in comparison to. My feeling is that a lot of those dynamics, that touch sensitivity and all that stuff, comes from the fact that you have to wrestle some of that sometimes. And there are other ways to make your guitar quiet than compromising on the pickup, which to me is where the tone of the guitar starts, besides your hands, obviously. So there you go. The difference between a single coil pickup and a stacked humbucker. It is not a stacked single coil. It is a stacked humbucker. There you go. If you have any questions about it, put it in the comments below. You can see that I have a pretty thick opinion about this one. I just don't like them. And to tell you the truth, this Fender Noiseless thing that's on the table right here is a pile of junk. I would never put one of these in my guitar. And if I had one and I was playing live as a professional musician, I'd rip that thing out right away, just because of the reliability issues. I'll try to show you, hopefully in this video so far, I've shown you some pictures of it up close. It's terrible. Thanks for hanging out. My name is Dylan. If you are new to this channel, hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you follow us and do all the things. And We're going to be giving away some stuff at the end of the month about guitar setup. We got a video coming out next week. It's part 2 in a series, so make sure you check that out. And I think you're going to dig it. If you want to help us out with what we do around here, you can check out patreon.com/DylanTalksTone. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. It's colder than I thought. I'm going to go inside.